What is going on, everybody? And in this video, I'm going to give you guys a state of the market, then some of my stock picks that I am looking for on February 3rd, 2022. So if you are interested in daily updates and weekly updates to get you prepared for the next day and upcoming week, hit that subscribe button and drop a thumbs up before we get started. So today, we've had a really good bounce. We've digested Powell's information. Again, that whole Powell situation is something that is going to essentially reoccur throughout the year, essentially just waiting for the Fed to determine when rates will happen. We went from 7 down to maybe 2 rate raises. It fluctuated back to 3 or 4 rate raises. The Fed doesn't know where they're going to stand. And so that's why the market is left in limbo with rate raises. Being said, the market went ahead and priced in essentially 5 points on what a rate raise would be essentially. So we got a 12-point correction on a 12% correction on the index. So being said, today we did get a new tidbit of information. So apparently we do have the non-farm payroll unemployment coming out on Friday, which normally in my mind, it does not matter. But first thing this morning, we did find out that there's a new metric apparently associated with that of the unemployment, essentially saying that if you have COVID, that you will be considered unemployed. And so now that metrics is being added, which could eventually make Friday's report actually very impactful if it goes negative. Now, again, this is not something that was foreseen. This just came out today. And like always, this information likes to be dropped last minute. The market is very strong, though. A lot of earnings went well. But another thing to consider here, we do have another little company called Facebook, who has now rebranded to Meta, and they got absolutely wrecked today. Essentially, all their resources are going into the metaverse. A lot of people are excited, hey, meta, but a lot of people forget that the whole metaverse thing, it's a couple years down the road. Now, yes, you could say they do have a lot of stuff coming out this year, next year, but for the world to adapt to this new metaverse, you're still going to need a couple of years, 5 years or so. So this whole rebranding, reshaping is definitely going to impact Facebook a lot. And this is also why Facebook has been struggling to reach back up to the 400 or to the 300 mark, 400, excuse me. And so it's really been playing this range. And then today it just kind of solidified all that stuff and it got the beat down. So, and that in turn made everything else come crashing down. So the SPX isn't actually updated. SPY is updated. The market did take a bit of a correction after hours, pullback. But one thing I've been talking about over the past 2 days, I've been kind of looking for a pullback. We only got a 1.25% pullback on SPY. Now, if we look back on the SPX here, now we've gone straight up since we've broken out of this range. I said we really need to go back and retest that range. We might actually spend with Facebook's little mishap and the whole metaverse branding. We might actually see quite a pullback here. Actually, let me grab this from the bottom. Wanted to get from top of range, but since the move is from the bottom, we will go here. So we are looking back at the top of the range. I think we're actually going to pull back to the top of the range. We did break through. We had a lot of momentum with some good earnings to break through some of these supports, the 20 and the 25. We might actually come back down to the 45, 40 mark. If we can hold that, I think we're in really good shape. I think there's still a lot of good earnings. One thing to keep in mind is that a lot of companies are going to be hit, and a lot of companies are going to do extremely well. You're going to have from one spectrum to the other. There will be very, very few, if any, in between. And so those ones that are in between will essentially almost be bought up by the bigger companies, especially going through what we're going through now. And a lot of things have taken major price gouges. So being said, the market in itself, I'm still bullish, but what I'm looking for here is for, I think there's just more fear put in the market with the headline about the whole unemployment thing. Yes, I think it can impact uh, tech to an extent, but I don't see us crashing. Everybody's in this crash market. I know we all got PTSD, but I don't expect a crash. This is very good. We are actually retesting. If you look here on the daily, we're retesting these levels. It's 45.61 right now. If we get a pullback, retest that old zone that we had, like I've talked about, yes, you can say, well, this is a higher low here, Marcus. It could be, but it could be the turnaround point. And in my mind, that could also be the reasoning right there. We did hit that trend line. So initially, that first initial, again, hit on the trend line, you're going to get a hard rejection. We need a retest of this. I wouldn't actually be surprised if the next 2 days we sell down here again to the 44.45 mark. I really want to see, I think, again, Facebook does have a lot of weight, and it could pull us all the way back down here. We may actually bounce here off this support here, the 45.10 mark. Essentially, I would probably go more at the 4,500 mark, and then possibly get a breakout. If Amazon does well, I think that can break us back above. If Amazon does poorly, I think we'll be back down here at this zone at the 4,400 mark. Do I see us breaking down below this 43.20 mark? I really don't see us breaking back below this. I mean, there has to be something really bad about the market. Yes, there's a lot of bad stuff, but I mean, not enough to bring us down. I mean, the economy is not shutting down. There's no way, in my mind, that this is going to come crashing through here. Yes, there's a lot of inflation and everything that is going on, but also I kind of believe in an extent that it is transitory. And again, I know Powell is looking for this too. That if this is transitory, that there won't be a need for accelerate rate raises, and then you can go at Powell's pace to essentially get the market back on track, which would actually cause the market to pump more and become more bullish again. We're starting to see that with some of the Fed members coming out and saying that, hey, we're not going to make all these rate raises. There's just going to be maybe 2 this year. We're not doing a full 5 points is also something I've heard, and so that also added to the fuel for the bulls. So there's a lot of mixed messages out there. The market has just been kind of fed up. I had some good earnings and went running up. Bad earnings on Facebook. I think we might get another day or two bleed out to the end of the week because of that. Again, we needed a pullback. This is a reason we needed it. Technically, it's perfectly fine and something we would look forward to on a trend hit here anyway. We actually were breaking through some trend lines that I thought we would have got rejected off of, but we didn't. We actually kind of just pushed straight through. So I do expect this to try to come down. Again, it really depends on Amazon. Do we hold the 4,500 mark, or do we come back down and retest that 44.30 mark is our true question. Again, if Amazon does break this, maybe we come back down again here to the 4,500 mark. And then Amazon does great, and that gives us enough oomph to break through the trend. I think once we get above this trend, we're going to continue up with no problem. And then all the Fed stuff, I think, is just going to provide volatility. I don't think it really would be that much. Again, unless for some reason the Fed become extremely hawkish and actually start taking action, then at that point, I think we would correct. Again, we normally only have 2 corrections a year. So to think that we have back-to-back, it's not saying it's impossible, but it's highly unlikely that would happen. Again, why I think we had the 12% correction on the index already to try to alleviate some of that. So we'll see what happens. Again, day to day, it's all changing. We're getting new information today. We'll see what the jobs report really does on Friday. I think they might provide some volatility, maybe get us to sell back down here to this level. I don't know. We have to see day by day. This is also why I do daily updates, do weekly updates. I do daily or morning calls, essentially, too, on Twitter for that fact. Again, Bitcoin, same thing, got rejected. Again, I'm thinking we might have a little bit of a pullback, but I think we're going to break through this. We're kind of really watching this trend line here. Again, as long as it holds the 32 K mark, I think we're perfectly fine. But we have to see how everything plays out on that front. Yes, I don't want to be too overly bullish, too biased to one side, but my reasoning being is that there is no real reason to be selling. Again, a lot of stuff Fed has been coming out with some over exuberant numbers and some really wild guesses here that are being shot down left and right. And so, again, we have to see how, again, the market plays out from this point. So as far as picks tomorrow, Tesla just had earnings, so I want to kind of, a lot of the ones that just had earnings, we'll kind of let those die out. Apple really kind of struggling too, so just kind of letting those die back out. I mean, if Apple does come back down to the 168 mark, you could get a nice bounce off of that. But I think the ones that are going to have more momentum are your Googles. Because of the stock split, I think this one and this massive earnings that it had, this massive gap up, I'm actually looking for Google to come back down to that 27.95 mark. First attempt would be a great time to get in here. We're going to get a great bounce, first of all, but it could be a reversal and start going back up once we get the exact date on the split. This thing I think we'll start running parabolic as long as the market doesn't completely crap out. But even still, once we get a date and it gets closer to that split date, this thing will start running. So this is something you definitely want to be keeping on watch about splits since they announced it, and watch it very closely for that fact. Now going into tomorrow, I think it's going to be ultimately just Google and chips. Chips have been extremely strong through all this, and they've done extremely well. Qualcomm actually had earnings today. They absolutely crushed it, and then they made all-time highs and then got essentially shorted and dropped because of Facebook. That's a big wick here. But ultimately, tomorrow, it's actually starting to kind of look like a wedge. It should probably go down on the smaller time frames. You could see a wedge forming here. So this is actually probably really good here. You get a wedge here. I think this can actually pop right back up tomorrow and test it as long as Facebook, as long as the rest of the market holds. I think Qualcomm, this was just more of a sticker shock because Facebook absolutely got destroyed. So it brought down this, but it popped straight right back up. And right now it looks great. If you're looking on the 15, this actually looks really great on lower time frames, and you can see it on higher time frames here as well. So Qualcomm's another big one I'm looking for tomorrow for continuation. I think can do really well. Again, NVIDIA has got earnings in 2 weeks. So something else to keep on watch. Also looks like it's starting to have a descending wedge, so you should get a nice bullish move out of this. If it does hold this 239 mark tomorrow, even if it dives down here and starts touching that 200 again on the daily, it would be nice as long as it holds this. Like something I said, we hit the 50, retested the 20. We're going to continue to go all the way back down. If we do start testing the 50 level, I would expect a break on that and then possibly even lower than that. But what I'm expecting is actually this to possibly float back around that 200 tomorrow, because a lot of stuff is kind of coming back to that 200. I think you might get a wick out of here and then continue up is what I'm looking for. Again, if there's any new information, it could really change things dramatically. But that is pretty much what I'm watching. UPST is another one I'm watching. I want to watch some of these levels down here at the 89 mark and the 79 mark are good entry points if UPST does come down that low. Again, you're hitting the 200 weekly, so you're floating around here. Again, this is the first retest after the break. You should get a nice pump off of here tomorrow as well. That just depends on how the market does this. If the market stays flat, I think we start running back up. If the market gaps down because of Facebook, I think then we're going to probably see some of those lower levels I was talking about earlier. So again, I think that market is, again, still very bullish. There's no reason to be selling. Yes, some of these, Facebook is going through their own thing. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the economy. They were losing market share is what's going on. So they're rebranding into metaverse because there's a bigger piece of the pie when they get that far. But you have to also remind yourself that that is still very far down the road. Yes, they do have the Oculus, and they are building that out, but that takes time. You're looking more down, 5-10 years down the road. So they've shifted their focus from their breadwinner into something else. They're putting all their resources into it, and so that's something you need to be mindful of, and realize that Facebook might not actually be doing much for the next couple of years, and might continue to sell tomorrow. Now, is that going to pull down the market? I don't know. That's what we have to see. But as long as your Googles, your Apples, your Teslas, your Microsoft, your Nvidias, your Amazon comes through, I think everything's going to be rock solid, and no one's really going to care what happens to Facebook. Even though it's still weighted, you don't want it to fall too far down. But I think as long as you have the majority still pushing up, it should be perfectly fine. Again, Facebook took a massive hit already. Do I see it continuing to go down? Maybe a little bit more. Maybe some people won't like what Zuckerberg said. They'll sell their shares, and then you might get a little bit more bleeding tomorrow. That could be even a play tomorrow. Is look for a bounce. I mean, this is already sold pretty badly, to be honest. So you're looking at that essentially that 280 mark. If it does come around the 280 mark, it'd be a good point to possibly short. So we could possibly get a relief bounce here tomorrow up to that 280 mark. If that's the case, it'd be a good put entry for Facebook. Again, the company, even though it did essentially good, there's just all the resources are going in the wrong direction, and people don't like that. And again, it's going to take a long time before the whole rebranding thing really kind of plays out. It is Zuckerberg. He can always surprise, but right now it's just not looking good. So we have to see how that plays out. But if you've made it this far, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.